If you keep living like this, nothing will change. Not your results. Not your habits. Not your future. Because your life is not decided by what you do once in a while. It is decided by what you repeat every single day. Quietly. Unnoticed. Without attention. That is where your future is being built. Right now. In your daily habits. Most people don't realize this. They wait for something big. A breakthrough. A perfect moment. A sudden burst of motivation. But those moments are rare. And even when they come, they don't last. Because motivation fades. Emotion changes. And when it does, most people stop. They lose consistency. They fall back into old patterns. And nothing changes. This is why so many people feel stuck. Not because they lack potential, but because they lack discipline. They rely on how they feel, instead of what they do daily. The Stoic does the opposite. You remove emotion from the equation. You focus on action. You build habits that move you forward. Regardless of how you feel. That is where transformation begins. Not in intensity, but in consistency. Doing the right things. Again and again. Even when it is boring. Even when it is uncomfortable. Even when no one is watching. Because that is where real strength is built. In the repetition. In the discipline. In the daily effort that most people ignore. Think about it. If you improve just a little each day, what happens after a month? After a year? After 5 years? That small effort compounds. It grows. It builds momentum. Until one day, everything is different. Not because of one big decision, but because of many small ones. That is how unstoppable people are made. Not overnight, but daily. Through habits that shape their identity. Because your habits become you. They shape how you think. How you act. How you respond to life. Weak habits create a weak foundation. Strong habits create a powerful life. This is where your change begins. Not tomorrow. Not later. Now. With what you choose to repeat. If you're ready to build habits that transform your life, subscribe to this channel to get more of this. Because what you're about to learn will change how you live every single day. 1. Wake up with intention. Most people don't wake up. They react. Their eyes open. And within seconds, their mind is already elsewhere. Phone. Messages. Notifications. Noise. Before they even think, they are already distracted. And that distraction spreads into the entire day. Unfocused. Reactive. Uncontrolled. A man once lived this way for years. Every morning, the same pattern. Alarm. Phone. Scrolling. He told himself it was harmless. Just a few minutes. But those minutes turned into habits. And those habits shaped his life. His days felt rushed. His focus was weak. His mind was always scattered. He felt like he was constantly catching up. But never getting ahead. One morning, something changed. Not dramatically. Just a small decision. He didn't pick up his phone. He sat still. For the first time in a long time. There was silence. It felt uncomfortable. His mind wanted distraction. Something to fill the space. But he stayed. He asked himself one question. What actually matters today? At first, nothing came. Just noise. Random thoughts. But he stayed with it. And slowly, clarity began to form. He saw what needed to be done. What deserved his attention. What didn't. That morning felt different. Not easier. But clearer. More controlled. He moved through his day with intention. Less distraction. More focus. And at the end of the day, something surprising happened. He felt in control. Not overwhelmed. Not scattered. Just clear. So he repeated it the next day. And the next. It wasn't perfect. Some mornings were harder. Some days he slipped. But he kept returning to that moment. That pause. That question. What matters today? And over time, it changed him. He was no longer reacting to his day. He was directing it. This is the power of waking up with intention. It is not about doing more. It is about thinking clearly first. Because when your mind is clear, your actions follow. Your focus strengthens. Your discipline improves. Your decisions become better. All from one habit. How you begin your day. And that beginning shapes everything that follows. 2. Control your first thoughts. Before your day begins, something already has control. Your thoughts. They arrive quietly. Unnoticed. Automatic. And most people follow them without question. A woman once woke up every morning feeling heavy. Before she even left her bed, her mind was already racing. Deadlines. Problems. Things she feared might go wrong. She didn't choose these thoughts. They just appeared. And she accepted them. Every day. She carried that weight into everything. Her work felt harder. Her energy felt low. Her focus was weak. She thought something was wrong with her life. But the problem wasn't her life. It was her thoughts. One morning, something shifted. Not because life became easier, but because she paid attention. Instead of immediately following her thoughts, she paused. She noticed them. The same patterns. The same stress. The same negativity. And for the first time, she questioned them. Are these thoughts helping me? That question changed everything. Because it created awareness. And awareness created choice. She didn't try to force positivity. She simply redirected. One thought at a time. What can I actually control today? That became her anchor. Each time her mind drifted into stress, she returned to that question. Slowly. Her mornings changed. The weight began to lift. Not completely. But enough. Enough to think clearly. Enough to focus. Enough to act. Days became lighter. More manageable. More controlled. Because she was no longer a passenger in her own mind. She became the driver. This is the power of controlling your first thoughts. Not by suppressing them, but by observing them. Guiding them. Choosing which ones deserve your attention. Because your thoughts shape your actions. And your actions shape your results. If your thoughts are scattered, your day will be scattered. If your thoughts are focused, your day will be focused. This is where control begins. Not later. At the start. In the first few moments of awareness. And over time, that awareness becomes strength. Because you stop reacting automatically. You start choosing intentionally. That is how you take control of your mind. And when your mind is controlled, your life follows. 3. Do what you avoid first. There is always something you are avoiding. Something small. Something uncomfortable. Something you keep pushing forward. A young man lived with this habit every day. He had goals. Plans. things he wanted to achieve. But there was always one task he avoided. The most important one. The most uncomfortable one. Each morning, he told himself the same thing. I'll do it later. And each day, later never came. He filled his time with easier tasks. Things that felt productive. But weren't meaningful. At the end of the day, he felt busy. But not fulfilled. He knew he was avoiding something. And that awareness created pressure. The task grew heavier in his mind. More difficult. More intimidating. Until it felt almost impossible. This is what avoidance does. It doesn't remove difficulty. It increases it. One morning, something changed. Not because he felt motivated. But because he was tired. Tired of the pressure. Tired of the delay. Tired of knowing he wasn't doing what mattered. So he made a simple decision. Do it first. Before anything else. No thinking. No delay. Just action. It was uncomfortable. His mind resisted. Every part of him wanted to avoid it again. But he didn't stop. He stayed with it. Step by step. Until it was done. And in that moment, something shifted. The pressure disappeared. The weight lifted. His mind felt clear. For the first time in a long time. He felt in control. The rest of his day felt different. Lighter. More focused. More productive. He realized something important. The task was never the problem. Avoidance was. From that day on, he did the hardest thing first. Not perfectly. Not easily. But consistently. And over time, his life changed. Because he built a new habit. Facing discomfort early. Removing resistance immediately. Creating momentum from the start. This is what makes you unstoppable. Not doing everything. But doing what matters. Without delay. Because once you remove avoidance, everything becomes easier. Your focus improves. Your discipline strengthens. Your confidence grows. And your results follow. 4. Train your mind daily. Your mind is always active. Always thinking. Always reacting. But not always helping you. Left untrained, it becomes your greatest weakness. Easily distracted. Easily influenced. Easily overwhelmed. A man once struggled with this every day. He wanted to focus. To build something meaningful. To stay disciplined. But his mind wouldn't cooperate. He would start working. Then suddenly check his phone. He would try to concentrate. Then drift into random thoughts. He would plan his day. Then abandon it halfway. At first, he blamed his environment. Too many distractions. Too many responsibilities. Too many interruptions. But one evening, he sat alone and realized something uncomfortable. The problem wasn't outside. It was inside. His mind was not trained. So he started small. Each day, he set aside a few minutes. No phone. No noise. Just silence. At first, it felt unbearable. His thoughts jumped everywhere. He couldn't sit still. He wanted to quit. But he stayed. Day after day. Not perfectly. But consistently. He began to notice patterns. How easily he got distracted. How quickly his mind chased comfort. How often he avoided effort. And once he noticed, he could change it. He started bringing that awareness into his day. When he got distracted, he returned. When his mind wandered, he refocused. When he felt resistance, he stayed with the task. Slowly, his focus improved. Not dramatically, but enough. Enough to complete tasks. Enough to stay consistent. Enough to feel progress. Weeks turned into months. And something changed. His mind became calmer. Stronger. More controlled. He could focus longer. Think clearer. Act with intention. Because he trained his mind. Daily. This is what most people ignore. They expect discipline. Without mental training. They expect focus. Without practice. But your mind works like a muscle. If you don't train it, it weakens. If you train it daily, it strengthens. And that strength shows up everywhere. In your work. In your habits. In your decisions. Because you are no longer reacting. You are directing. This is what separates the average from the unstoppable. Not talent. Not luck. Mental discipline. Built daily. If this is changing how you see your mind, subscribe to this channel to get more of this. 5. Control your reactions. Life will challenge you. Unexpectedly. Unfairly. Without warning. And in those moments, your reaction matters more than the situation itself. A man once lost something important to him. A deal he had worked on for months. It fell apart in a single moment. His first instinct was anger. Frustration. Blame. He wanted to react immediately. To say something. To release the emotion. But he paused. Not because it was easy. But because he had learned something. Your first reaction is not always your best response. So he stayed silent. For a moment. Then another. The emotion was still there. Strong. Intense. But he didn't act on it. He let it pass. Slowly. The intensity dropped. Clarity returned. And with that clarity, he responded differently. Calm. Measured. Focused on what could still be done. Instead of what was lost. That moment changed everything. Not the situation. But the outcome. Because his reaction didn't make things worse. It created space for a better decision. Most people never create that space. They react instantly. Emotion leads. Action follows. And consequences appear. Words they regret. Decisions they wish they could undo. Damage that could have been avoided. All from one uncontrolled moment. The Stoic breaks this pattern. You pause. You observe the emotion. But you do not become it. You create distance. Between feeling and action. That distance is your power. Because inside it, you can choose. You can respond with intention. Instead of impulse. This is not suppression. It is control. You still feel everything. But you decide what to do with it. And that changes everything. Because no matter what happens, you remain stable. You remain clear. You remain in control. And that control builds confidence. Because you trust yourself. You know that no matter the situation, you will respond well. That is strength. Quiet. Consistent. Unshaken. And that is what makes you unstoppable. 6. Eliminate what does not matter. Most people feel busy. But not fulfilled. They move all day. Task after task. Message after message. Noise without direction. A young professional once lived like this every day. His schedule was full. From morning to night. Meetings. Calls. Endless notifications. He barely had time to think. And yet, at the end of each day, he felt empty. No real progress. No meaningful results. Just exhaustion. At first, he believed this was normal. That success required constant activity. That being busy meant he was doing something right. But something didn't feel right. Because despite all the effort, nothing was changing. One evening, he sat down and did something simple. He wrote everything he had done that day. Every task. Every distraction. Every moment. Then he asked himself one question. What actually mattered? The answer surprised him. Very little. Most of his time was spent reacting. Responding. Following urgency instead of importance. He wasn't directing his day. He was being pulled through it. That realization changed everything. The next day, he made a decision. Do less. But focus more. He removed unnecessary tasks. Reduced distractions. Ignored what didn't move him forward. At first, it felt uncomfortable. Like he was missing something. Like he should be doing more. But he stayed with it. Day by day. And slowly. Something changed. His work became deeper. More focused. More effective. He started seeing real progress. Not because he worked harder. But because he worked on what mattered. This is the difference most people never understand. More is not better. Better is better. Focused effort creates results. Scattered effort creates exhaustion. You must choose. What deserves your time? What deserves your energy? What deserves your attention? Because you cannot give your best to everything. And if you try, you dilute your potential. The Stoic simplifies. You remove the unnecessary. You focus on the essential. You commit to what truly matters. And over time, that focus compounds. It builds momentum. It creates progress. It changes your life. Not through more activity, but through better decisions. 7. Accept discomfort daily. Discomfort is not your enemy. It is your teacher. But most people run from it. They avoid difficulty. Choose what feels easy. Stay where it is comfortable. And slowly, they weaken. A man once lived entirely in comfort. He avoided anything that felt difficult. Waking up early. Hard work. Challenging conversations. He told himself he would change one day. But that day never came. Because comfort delayed it. Years passed. And nothing improved. Until one moment changed everything. He faced a situation he couldn't avoid. A challenge that forced him to act. And in that moment, he realized something powerful. He was not prepared. Not strong enough. Not disciplined enough. Because he had spent years avoiding discomfort. That realization stayed with him. So he made a decision. Stop avoiding what is hard. Start facing it daily. He began small. Waking up earlier. Working when he didn't feel like it. Doing things he would normally avoid. It was uncomfortable. Every time. His mind resisted. Tried to pull him back to ease. But he didn't stop. He kept going. Day after day. And something changed. The discomfort didn't disappear. But it became familiar. Less intimidating. More manageable. He became stronger. More disciplined. More resilient. Because he trained himself to face difficulty. This is where growth happens. Not in comfort. But in challenge. Every time you choose what is hard. You build strength. Every time you push through resistance. You build discipline. Every time you face discomfort, you expand your limits. This is how you become unstoppable. Not by avoiding difficulty, but by mastering it. Turning it into growth. Using it to become stronger. And over time, what once felt impossible becomes normal. What once stopped you no longer affects you. Because you changed. Through daily discomfort. If this is changing how you face challenges, subscribe to this channel to get more of this. 8. Protect your time. Time is the only thing you cannot recover. Money returns. Opportunities can reappear. But time, once spent, is gone. A man once lived without thinking about this. His days were filled with distractions. Scrolling. Watching. Jumping from one thing to another. He told himself it was harmless. Just a few minutes here and there. But those minutes added up. Hours each day. Days each week. Years over time. One evening, he sat down and calculated how much time he had wasted. The number shocked him. Not because it was small, but because it was massive. Time he could never get back. That moment stayed with him. He began to see time differently. Not as something endless, but as something limited. Precious. Worth protecting. The next day, he made a change. He didn't try to eliminate everything. He started with awareness. Where is my time going? He noticed patterns. Moments of distraction. Moments of wasted attention. And slowly, he began to take control. He reduced unnecessary scrolling. Limited distractions. Focused on what mattered. At first, it felt restrictive. Like he was missing out. But over time, something changed. He gained something far more valuable. Clarity. Focus. Progress. Because his time was no longer scattered. It was directed. Intentional. Purposeful. And that changed his life. Because how you spend your time is how you spend your life. Every hour you protect becomes an opportunity. Every moment you use wisely builds your future. The Stoic understands this deeply. You do not waste time. You invest it. In what matters. In what moves you forward. In what builds your life. And over time, that investment compounds. Creating results. Creating growth. Creating a life that reflects intention. Not distraction. If this is changing how you see your time, subscribe to this channel to get more of this. 9. Take full responsibility. Blame feels good in the moment. It removes pressure. It shifts responsibility. But it also removes your power. A man once blamed everything. His circumstances. Other people. His past. Every time something went wrong, he had an explanation. A reason. A justification. And because of that, nothing changed. He stayed stuck. Repeating the same patterns. Facing the same problems. Until one moment forced him to see the truth. He realized something difficult. As long as he blamed everything else, he would never take control. And without control, there would be no change. So he made a decision. Stop blaming. Start taking responsibility. Not for everything that happened, but for what he did next. That shift was uncomfortable. Because it removed excuses. It forced action. It demanded effort. But it also gave him something powerful. Control. He stopped waiting for things to improve. He started improving them. Through his actions. Through his decisions. through his discipline. And slowly, his life began to change. Not because circumstances became perfect, but because he became stronger, more capable, more responsible. He realized something important. You may not control everything that happens, but you always control your response. And that response shapes your life. Every decision, every action, every step forward. This is where power begins. Not in blame, but in responsibility. Because when you take ownership, you take control. And when you take control, you create change. 10. Reflect before you sleep. Most people end their day the same way they started it. Distracted. Unaware. Moving from one activity to another. Until they fall asleep. No reflection. No learning. No growth. A man once lived like this for years. Each day felt the same. Nothing changed. Not because he wasn't trying, but because he wasn't learning. One night, he tried something different. Before sleeping, he sat in silence. No phone. No distraction. Just reflection. He asked himself simple questions. What did I do well today? What could I have done better? At first, the answers were unclear. His mind wasn't used to this. But he stayed with it. Night after night. And slowly, clarity improved. He began to notice patterns. Mistakes. Distractions. Habits that held him back. And because he noticed them, he could change them. The next day, he adjusted. Made small improvements. Then reflected again. And adjusted again. This created momentum. Because each day built on the last. Each mistake became a lesson. Each lesson became progress. And over time, he became more aware. More disciplined. More intentional. Because he was learning from his own life. Daily. This is the power of reflection. It turns experience into growth. Without it, you repeat. With it, you improve. And that improvement compounds. Day by day. Until everything changes. If you've listened this far, you already feel it. Something is different. Not in your life yet, but in your awareness. You see it now. How small habits shape everything. How daily actions build your future. How consistency creates change. Most people never reach this point. They stay distracted. Unaware. Repeating the same patterns. Day after day. Year after year. Until regret appears. Not because they couldn't change, but because they didn't. You are not in that position anymore. You have clarity. You understand what needs to be done. Now, it comes down to one thing. Action. Not once, but daily. Because nothing changes if nothing is repeated. You don't need to do everything at once. You don't need to be perfect. You need to be consistent. Choose one habit. Start there. Repeat it tomorrow. And the next day. And the next. Because that repetition is what creates transformation. Slow. Quiet. But powerful. Until one day, you look back. And everything is different. Not because of one moment, but because of many small ones. That is how you become unstoppable. Through discipline. Through awareness. Through daily habits that shape who you are. If this changed how you see your life, subscribe to this channel to get more of this. Because this is not about motivation. It is about mastery. Mastery of your habits. Mastery of your discipline. Mastery of your life. And that mastery begins with what you do today. Right now. Not later. Not when you feel ready. Now. Because your future is being built by your habits.